Good deal. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Sure you're all admiring Coach's new digs up at the press box, or I'm sorry, at the ballpark. Yeah, it's a great view there, Coach.
Yeah, isn't it? Can you see the plow and the snow?
Okay, we'll open up questions for Coach. Just a reminder, if you could use that raise hand feature to get your question, get your hand raised in the queue, and we'll get going here. We'll start off with John Antonic. Go ahead, John.
Since Coach Hunter's not on here, I'll ask the first question. You've always been really good at getting your guys motivated, for a lack of respect. And then I look this year, I see you're 14th in one poll, you're 21st in another poll. How are you going to get your guys? What are you going to use to get your guys mad this year that you haven't been able to use in the past, or you've been able to use in the past?
I don't have a problem making them mad. I do that literally on a daily basis. So making them mad's not the issue, but things have changed a little bit. It's, as you guys know, West Virginia always fighting for national respect, and when you get some, it's like you got to reverse strategies and teach them that if you're going to be ranked that high and people think that highly of you, then you can't afford to ever take a day off from trying to be that good. Whether it be baseball or sleep or nutrition or something like that. You're not sneaking up on people the way we used to back at the old Holly Field. You gotta show up and be ready to play every day, regardless of who's on the schedule.
Next is Skylar Callahan.
Hey, Randy. Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball was telling us the other day that he believes both Ryan Berger and Jackson Wolf are probably one of the best 1-2 punches, not only the Big 12, but the country. What do you think about their maturation over the last few years, and just what you expect out of them this season?
Yeah, it's no longer a 1-2 punch. It's just a 1 punch because Berger's out for the year. But Wolf has matured a lot. He was kind of always in the shadow of Alek Manoah, his whole career, and Manoah got the limelight, and Wolf just needed, as that was happening, get more mature and bigger and stronger. And once Manoah left, I think Jackson took it upon himself to try and be the guy on this staff. And he started off really good last year. I think he won 3 or 4 games early on and pitched really well. And I actually think he's better right now than he was last year. We made a few more adjustments with him, and he's pitching really well right now. So I'm expecting him to have a pretty good year.
Joe Mercado is next.
Randy, given the uncertainty with how many Big 12 games you guys would play, how much of a challenge was it to get your schedule set for this year?
I don't know that it was a challenge. It was more of a scramble because, the people that make those decisions, they're focused on football up until Christmas, and then they start focusing on basketball, and rightfully so with those 2 sports. You got to try and get those 2 right first. So by the time you get around to baseball, you're within a month of the season. So it was a lot of Zoom calls in a short period of time to try and figure out the schedule, but we eventually got it right. So I think we're in a good place with what the Big 12 has decided, and I think we have a chance to hopefully get all of our games in.
We'll go to Kevin Kinder.
Randy, we were talking about your schedule earlier and making it up, and I guess the COVID considerations and the people around you not playing as many. You're really front loaded with a lot of out of conference games, I think, and you've got like 7 games in one 10-day stretch and 12 in a 17-day stretch. Do you look at that as, hey, this is our chance to see what our young pitchers are like, see who can help us down the road? I would guess a lot of those guys are going to get some innings early.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have a little bit of depth on this team. Big time wallpaper behind you, by the way.
That's my wife's, not me.
Yeah, sure it is. But no, we like to try and play a lot of games early because that's when you see the young arms and see what they're capable of and see who you can use once conference starts. And our schedule is a little bit. We don't have as many games this year. You'll see that not as many midweek games in April and May as we're accustomed to. So once you get into conference, you can hopefully roll through a conference series with 7 or 8 guys on a weekend if the starters pitch well. So that leaves a lot less innings for those young guys to pitch once you start conference. So you need to know who you can count on when you get late in the year. And the only way to know that is to pitch them all early. So we're gonna go down where we go and playing 4 games opening weekend and get a chance to see everybody. And you can tell a lot more about a pitcher when he pitches against another team outside than when he pitches against his own team in the indoor facility. So that's kind of why we always front load the schedule like that.
We'll go to Sam Caniglio. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Coach. Looks like this season you have a high volume of freshmen coming into the program. How different and how difficult was it integrating those guys as a team? And who are you particularly excited about for this season?
We weren't. It wasn't hard to integrate them. I think the reason we have a lot of freshmen is because we have this year's freshmen and last year's freshmen are still freshmen. So that's gonna create some issues as that huge class gets older as far as roster management. But Jake Carr last year was off to a really good start. He's a COVID freshman, and Matt McCormick is a COVID freshman. So those guys, throw in Victor Scott, who got some valuable experience. Those guys are going to be a major part of what we've got going on right now. And, with this year's class, the new guys got some pitchers with some really good arms. Carlson Reed and Tyler Chadwick are guys you're probably going to see on the mound some. Got a graduate transfer from Wofford that looks like he's going to be a lineup guy for us. So we didn't lose much. We only had 3 seniors and got a whole new class in. So we didn't need a ton of help. Zarb really was the only guy we lost out of the lineup. And Zarb and Dylan Meadows were the only guys we lost off the mound. So don't need a ton of help, but I think we got enough help out of those classes to fill in.
Michael Sussman.
Coach, this is just kind of a general question, but for those freshmen, those younger guys that you just mentioned, what do you think the most difficult adjustment is going from high school to the Big 12 conference?
Obviously the level of competition, especially the small town kids that, were all superstars in their high school and struck out 15 a game. And, you can't get away with that here. You've got to learn how to win. You look back at on our 2019 team that was a really good team. Manoa, I think, won 10 games. Nick Snyder ended up winning 9 or 10 games. But those guys didn't do that their first year here. Manoa had to fight through his freshman year. And Nick Snyder, the year before that season, had 4 appearances in which he never finished an inning. I had to go get him. I put him in the game and had to go get him before the inning was over. So playing in the Big 12 is a learning process. It doesn't matter if you throw 100 and have great stuff or can hit. You've got to learn how to hit and how to pitch, and that's what you try and speed these freshmen up their timeline as far as that goes. So a lot of it rests on them. How serious do they want to be about this? How early in their career?
Back to John.
Hey, Coach, what was the biggest challenge in putting the schedule together, and how much did consideration for pauses play into the way it shakes out?
The midweek games are obviously the toughest because there's only a few leagues that are playing 3-game weekends. Us and the ACC and the SEC are really the only 3 in our area, to my knowledge, that are playing 3-game weekends. So all the other conferences that are playing 4-game weekends in conference, they're not going to play a midweek game, if they've got 4 games on a weekend. So that's the reason you only see, once conference starts, I think the only midweek game on our schedule is Pitt, because they're playing 3-game weekends. So, we're going to maybe hope for some cancellations early in the year, and maybe the Big Ten will come to their senses and change their mind and start playing outside competition. And we still reserve the right to play those games in April and May. It's impossible to schedule them with a team that's playing 4 games. But if a team gets COVIDed out on a 4-game weekend and is looking to play on a Tuesday or Wednesday, we still have plenty of options available for that. And I think that's probably going to happen. If history repeats itself with COVID here, there's going to be some weekends that are canceled probably, and teams looking for games later in the year.
Go ahead, Skylar.
Hey, Coach, what does it say about the strength of this league when you guys are predicted, or you're picked to be 14th in the country right now, but you're also picked to finish 6th in the league?
That's probably about right. The 6th place team in our league should be in the top 20, because we've got all the experience back, and it wasn't from our senior class because we had a small senior class, but we've got several guys on the team right now that wouldn't be here if the draft would have been a normal draft. Jackson Wolf and Tyler Dones and Tyler Chadwick coming in, and Adam Tullock coming in. Those guys probably would have signed pro in a regular draft. So that gives us 4 really good experienced players that we think are going to have success here and have proven success here. But the other part of that is that all the other Big 12 teams are in the same situation. They've got 4 or 5 or more kids that they weren't expecting to have on their team. So the talent level at the Power 5 level is going to be through the roof this year. So I think every team in the league is probably going to say this is the best team they've had in a while.
Okay, next is Carly Nevis.
I was going to ask you the Big 12 question, so I'll think of another one. Does Brophy feel like a really old guy on the team right now, since he's, coming in with people who just graduated from high school? And how has he developed into a leader, because he's been in college for a million years now?
Yeah, it's hard. I try not to get into the heads of players and try and figure out what they're thinking. But yeah, as we all look at Brophy, he's the butt of all the jokes about happy 29th birthday. We've been here. Brophy, you were a sophomore when I got here 8 years ago, that whole thing. But he's got a great temperament and a great personality, and kind of gravitates toward the new guys in the program because of his the way he handles things. And I think they look to him from work ethic and how to get through this and how to practice, that type of thing. His leadership qualities with young guys are probably his strongest asset on this team. So yeah, it's good to have him around. He kind of buffers those freshmen right now. And this is a tough time to be a freshman in college. You've got no social life, obviously, which is good from a baseball standpoint, but kids are kids, and they need a social life and they need interaction, and, they need to be around people, but they can't, so it's pretty tough on them. But I've said from the beginning with this team, the team with the least amount of positive tests is probably going to have a better year this year. So if we can manage to stay clean and all the good players we feel like we have are playing all the time, then I think we have a chance to have a good year. But if we get 5 or 6 guys wiped out and have to shift positions and put guys out there that aren't used to playing at a certain position, then it could be a free-for-all. So we're trying to do everything we can to keep these guys clean, and guys like Brophy really help when it comes to that.
We'll go Sam and then John.
Coach, if I could follow up with about Ryan Berger, what exactly was the situation that took him out for the season? And while we're on the topic, how's the overall health of the rest of the team going into the season?
Ryan Berger's out for the year, and Tevin Tucker, our shortstop's out for the year. They both had surgery. Tevin had surgery about a week and a half ago, and Berger had surgery in December.
Okay, John.
Curious, we asked you this, I think and maybe in the summertime or the spring, about the backlog of players. Is the sport adjusted to that yet? Is that still going on? Because I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of good kids. They're going to have a hard time finding spots on teams because of the backlog.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that I don't know. You'd like to think that they thought that through when they allowed everybody to get a year back, that was going to create that backlog that isn't going to go away for a while for us. I think we had 12 freshmen last year on the team, and 12 or 13 come in this year. So 25 freshmen on a team when you have a 35-man roster, that math doesn't work. So in a nutshell, kids are going to be looking for places to go. So the transfer portal in baseball is really going to blow up because, all those freshmen that were coming in expecting, Tevin Tucker and Tyler Dones and Wolf and those guys not to be here to create opportunities for them. Now those guys are back, and a lot of these incoming guys that thought they were going to play right away aren't going to get to play right away. And in today's world, you know how kids are. If they don't play right away, they jump somewhere else where they can play right away. So, the unintended consequences of giving everybody a year back is going to show up through the transfer portal here in the next 3, 4, and 5 years.
And Coach, real quick, the other confusing part of this is the draft, and you don't know what form it's going to eventually take. Before, some of those guys would get absorbed through the draft, but now you don't know what that's going to be, particularly for those lower level guys.
Yeah, for sure. But baseball coaches have a history of being able to adjust to stuff like that. We've been dealing with managing rosters because of draft and transfers and all that stuff for as long as I can remember. So that's something we're accustomed to. It's just a shame that not as many kids are going to make teams as they thought they were. So all the kids that for the last 2 or 3 years that have been committed to a school and thought their career was going to start and end at a particular school, that's not going to happen near as much as it used to.
We'll take these final few questions in the queue. Go ahead, Kevin.
Coach, you mentioned Hudson transferring in. Looks like he's really kind of an all-around player, but a bigger bat too. What does he bring to you? Do you have an idea? Where he positions in the lineup, what he can help you with?
No, not yet. We signed him because of his analytics, believe it or not. You guys probably are aware of how much I love technology and all that stuff. If you follow me on, what's it called, Twitter? Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter and Insta, all that Snap stuff and Insta stuff, I hate technology, but he was the analytics guy, one of the top 20 analytics guys in the country as far as batting average, walks, strikeouts, that type thing. But when you see him, he presents himself as a guy who can hit doubles and homers. But when you dig into the analytics, his on-base percentage and his walk to strikeout ratio, makes him valuable really in any spot in the lineup. It's not out of the realm of possibility that a big guy like him that can't run very well might hit leadoff for us, which would be interesting to say the least. You'd like to think a leadoff guy can run a little bit, but if you don't get on first base, you can't run very far after that. So he's a guy that draws a lot of walks, and in that leadoff position, that's what you want.
Joe Mercado.
Randy, with what Jake Carr gave you in 4 starts last season, does that give kind of him a run up to potentially earning a weekend starting spot, or does everybody kind of start back from square one?
Yeah, everybody starts from square one every year, but it's hard to ignore what he did last year. And I mean, if he had regressed a little bit, that'd be one thing, but he's gotten better from last year. So, and since last year. So yeah, he started off great, and he's going to be right in the mix on the weekends this season as well. You know, the only thing you don't know about our pitching staff from last year is we didn't face any Big 12 teams, you know, so I wouldn't say that we strapped it on with any teams that are considered high-powered offenses, you know, so that part has yet to be determined, which of our guys can stifle a high-powered offense.
Okay, Michael and John will be our final 2. Go ahead, Michael.
Coach, so far in practice, how have the live ABs gone? Have the pitchers kind of had the edge more? Have some guys been driving it pretty well? How's that gone?
Yeah, you know, depends on where we play. You know, if you play in an indoor practice facility, it's way more conducive to the pitchers because it's not the easiest place in the world to hit. But when you play outside, you know, then hitters have been driving some balls. But this time of the year, you want to pitch good, you know, because you know that your offense over time is going to settle into where it is. So when we start the season, we want to pitch better because pitchers are pitchers. You know, they're going to they don't progress over the course of the season like the hitters have a capability of doing. So I know we have a good offensive club, even if we're not showing it currently, or even if we don't show it the first 10 games. By the time we get our feet under us and get outside and start playing more games, that's when the offense catches up to the pitching. But you want your pitchers to be good from day one. It's pretty tough to lose a game if the other team doesn't score.
John, we'll finish up with you.
Yeah, you mentioned something that kind of piqued my interest about the quality of the Big 12. And I guess from a bigger view, do you think the quality of the game has improved maybe to the level of maybe even lower professional, since you've got so many good kids now on rosters? And I know you're a big proponent of growing the sport. Do you think we could see a lot of high-level baseball this year because you've got so many good players?
Yeah, there's no doubt that baseball this year is going to be way better, even from the mid-major teams that, you know, still hung on to a guy that might have been a, you know, 22nd round pick, you know, that was a really good senior pitcher that didn't get drafted, didn't sign as a free agent. Now he's back. So I think the level of baseball in general is going to be a lot better. And if we could ever get that season pushed back to the summertime, then I think that's the next step for our game to grow and even be a better game all around. And it's just, you know, getting more talented kids to come to college. That's what it's all about.
Coach, you know, the professional baseball is kind of recycling itself or reinventing itself. And a lot of these prospects possibly could be college baseball players feeding on to the major league. Do you think there's some movement there that could maybe help the game even more?
Yeah, there was before all this COVID stuff hit, there was the coaches were finally on board, I think, with pushing the season back. Nationwide, I think coaches are starting to get on board, and I think some ADs are starting to get on board. So I think eventually it's going to happen. I hope it's going to happen in my lifetime, you know, but I think there's a call for it. You know, you got to change. If you're going to progress, you got to change. You know, if people are so resistant to change, So when I was, one of my last emails to all the coaches in the country who I felt were resistant to change, I sent them the video clip of Bryant Gumbel and Katie Couric in 1980 on the Today Show talking about the internet. And they were going back and forth. And one of them said, have you heard of this thing called internet? It's like a little A with a circle around it. And it's like some kind of cloud where you just store information that's available to everybody. And they say, yeah, I don't see that catching on. So if you don't change, you don't progress in anything. So our sport has been basically the same for 125 years, right? So if we don't make changes, then it's not going to progress.
Coach, we'll turn you loose. It's good to talk a little baseball with you.
Peace. See if there's any less snow on the field than there was when we started. Starting to see some green out there.
There you go. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
See ya.